What's going on, everybody? I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, and it is a hell of a day to talk ball. We have a big show for you here today. Justin Boone joins me to preview everything that you need for Week 8, the six-pack of questions, the hurry-up offense, literally no one's games of the week, the whole deal. You know it, you love it. It's the weekly preview show. But before we get to that, we've got to talk Thursday night football here. We've got probably our worst Thursday night game in a minute here. We've got Chargers 37, Vikings 10. And I say that it's the worst game that we've had on Thursday night for a while because it was not competitive. The Chargers basically had this one in the bag from the beginning, but I actually think there's a lot for us to discuss and a lot that we learned from this game, specifically on the Chargers side of things, where this is, to me, the most actualized version of what I think the Chargers ideally want to be. At times this year, they have been very pass heavy, and they came out in this game throwing the football. Okay, they end up running the ball a lot. It's actually pretty even in terms of pass attempts, 25. Kimani Vidal, who we'll talk about in a second, 23 rush attempts. Jarrett Patterson, 11 rush attempts. Nyheim Hines, 2 rush attempts. So it's very run-leaning in this game, but they came out early attacking the Vikings through the air. Herbert, and Nate made a great point about this on the Thursday night preview, Herbert has had a pretty good sense here of how to beat this Brian Flores defense, specifically when they try to heat him up here. Next Gen Stats shows us on the screen right now, Herbert finished 13 of 15 and 162 yards and 2 touchdowns with 1 interception against the Vikings blitz. It's the fourth most yards against the blitz in his career. The last time the Vikings faced off against Justin Herbert, this was that game Nate was mentioning. Herbert was 32 of 38, 301 yards and 3 touchdowns against the blitz. So Herbert definitely was just dialed in, locked in all game long. You love to see it. And again, they came out with that passing game, but they were able to run to sustain the lead. They were able to lean on that as a real momentum force of the offense. And I do think that is what the Chargers want to be. Yes, they are as I've said, a pass first team. They lean into the litany of talents that they have in the pass catching department. That's great to see, but you also want to be able to keep the offense on schedule. You want to keep yourself ahead of the sticks when you have a lead, as you did in this game from the beginning. The Chargers led this thing throughout. They had it in the palm of their hands. Herbert had the game in the palm of his hands. When you have that, you also want to have the ground game where you can close that thing out. Ask Seattle when we did the damn 2 a.m. or whatever recap on Monday Night Football earlier this week. Ask Seattle how that goes when you don't have the run game to close out a game. You can keep a team. I don't know if the Vikings were ever going to get back in this one, but you kind of let a team hang around a little bit. So again, most actualized version I think we've seen of the Los Angeles Chargers offense and what they kind of want to be. And shout out to Kamani Vidal, really played well in this game. Short yardage runs, impactful, just consistent, moving the football down the field. Like big play wise, the Chargers in this one, for one, Kimani Vidal was the clear cut lead back. Hassan Haskins inactive for this game. Jarrett Patterson, former Commanders back, was the one who got the elevation. He was 30% rush attempts, rushing touches, running back touches in this game was Jarrett Patterson. Kamani Vidal 65%. Nyheim Hines just 5.4%. So it was clear, just like we saw in the Dolphins game, Kamani Vidal was hot off the start. He was the one off the rip that had that hot hand, and they were just going to keep riding him. He averaged 3.89 yards after contact per rush, 1.22 yards before contact per rush. I really would love to know, and I'm sure I could find this, but I'm not going to sit here and fool around on the recap show and dig this up. I would imagine the runs on Joe Alt's side off the left tackle, those had to be huge in terms of the yards before contact per rush attempt. Joe Alt being back in there made a huge difference. When you're just going from a player in Joe Alt that looked like he was establishing himself as one of the elite left tackles in the NFL earlier this season, then down to pure backups, the multi-level backups on this roster, you feel the difference, right? You really do. And Alt being back in there made a huge difference in the run game and in the pass game. Specifically for Vidal, it was a big one here. But still, he made the most of his runs after contact as well. He was playing well through contact. He was breaking tackles. So that was incredibly impressive to see. The Chargers are 4-0 this year when Joe Alt starts and finishes the game. Again, he is a huge difference maker for this team. The Chargers as a whole they had 419 yards on the ground in this game overall. They had a 53% rushing success rate overall. So that is impressive in its own right. When you isolate that to just running back runs, it's still 53%. So this wasn't just Justin Herbert in this game absolutely crushing it, which he was absolutely crushing it. But nevertheless, like, it was just a consistent, grinded out run game. Only 8.3% of their runs went for 10 plus yards in this game. Did the Los Angeles Chargers 10 plus yards? 8.3% of the runs went for 10 plus yards in this game. So it was, again, not a bunch of big plays. 36% went for 5 plus yards. 28% first down or touchdown. Very effective, consistent rushing game. That was fantastic to see for Kamani Vidal. Really good stuff for him. He's somebody that, as long as Amari Hampton's on IR, I think this performance, coupled with the breakout game against the Dolphins, probably going to keep this team from trading big-time assets for a running back. So I think if you're a Hampton backer, this game is good to see for you, because when he comes off IR, I don't think he's coming back to a backfield, and I could be wrong, but I don't think he's coming back to a backfield with like Tony Pollard or Alvin Kamara or Breece Hall or something in the mix here. I think it's going to be the Hampton show when he gets back there, and this looks like a really good rushing ecosystem with Joe Alt in there. That makes a really big difference. Let's talk about the passing game here, because like I said, Herbert, I thought, you had that the first drive of the game, potential pick 6. They wiped that one off the board, and then pretty much from then on, Herbert was almost completely locked in. He had the interception later on. That was kind of I wouldn't say that was solely on him. Ball gets tipped, Metellus gets it, whatever. Maybe got sped up a little bit by the blitz, but regardless, Herbert was just dialed in, making good decisions all night long, consistently finding the open receiver. He's someone that's just been such an awesome fantasy quarterback this year. He once again scrambles 7 times for 62 yards in this game. 8.9 yards per rush, 18-yard long run. He is, as we're showing on the screen here from Kyle from the Fantasy Footballers, we've never had an NFL quarterback with over 4,600 passing yards, 32 passing touchdowns, and 450-plus rushing yards in a single season. Justin Herbert is currently pacing for all 3. It's going under the radar, I think, because the Chargers started to slip the last few weeks. Just what an impactful season that Herbert is having. And you see in this game, it's nice when he's throwing the football all over the yard, pushing up the pass attempts in games like the Colts when they're trailing. But when they're able to be on schedule, when they're able to be efficient, that's when you get these games where he's completing over 70% of his passes and he's at like 9 yards per attempt. Again, that is what the Chargers offense ideally wants to be. And now let's get to the part where I mentioned he was activating almost every receiver in this game. And man, this Chargers team, I'm telling you guys, they are so deep in the pass catching department for now and for the future. Because yes, Keenan Allen is here, and Keenan, he had a couple of clutch catches early, only finishes 5 targets, 4 catches for 44 yards. And they're impactful catches. He's probably not going to be there next year. He's the only wide receiver that is not on a rookie contract. Everybody else, Quentin Johnson, Ladd McConkey, Trey Harris, Keandre Lambert-Smith, who was obviously inactive for this game, even Darius Davis on the roster. Those guys are all on rookie contracts. This team has a lot of momentum at the wide receiver position for the future, and we can't get out of this game without talking about the guy who led the team in routes, which was Oronde Gadsden. The numbers I'm looking at right now, he leads the team with 32 routes, 94% route participation. 94% route participation and 77% of the snaps while the team was controlling the game all night. Forget about, the production, which obviously was awesome. 5 targets, 5 catches, 77 yards and a touchdown. That's great. 10 air yards per target, 5.4 yards after catch per reception. All that stuff is awesome. I think it is almost more important. It makes you more bullish for Gadsden that he was on the field basically the entire night. The entire night in a game where they're controlling, where they're leading. You're thinking, oh, this guy's a former wide receiver. He's a pass catching specialist. He can only be on the field in this package or that package. Or what? No, 94% of the routes. We're going to talk about this later in the previous show. There's only 2 or 3 tight ends right now. It's like Trey McBride, Kyle Pitts, and I think one other tight end that off the top of my head the name is escaping me, that are running 90% of the routes for their team. And Gadsden does that in this game script. That makes you really, really bullish on him as, I think, in my opinion, a clear cut top 10 tight end the rest of the season. And I joked about it on Twitter tonight as we're showing on the screen. We've been talking about, oh yeah, Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen's a problem for him. Quentin Johnson's a problem. Well, Oronde Gadsden's a problem for all these guys. He's not actually maybe the best pass catcher for fantasy football overall. Obviously, Ladd McConkey is awesome in this game. But relative to position, he's the highest ranking at his position among Chargers pass catchers rest of season. And I think there's no question about that. He's an every week fantasy football starter in a good offense. He's playing up to the production, and Herbert is locked in. So set it and forget it. If you got Gadsden off waivers, shout out to you. I had him on one roster earlier this season, and Tucker Kraft's starting tight end, so I'm not like really kicking myself over it, but when he wasn't playing a ton, he was just kind of a stash for me. I ended up dropping him because of injuries. The team is still really good. Have Tucker Kraft is fine, but it's still bothering me that I dropped him. It's still bothering me. So hopefully you guys have some Oronde Gadsden on your teams, because you're lucky if you do. The rest of the pass catchers, let's talk about that. Ladd McConkey balls out in this game. He has one ugly drop over the middle of the field where I still don't know what the hell he was looking at there. Like, how did he not bring that pass in? But what matters most, he runs around on 85% of the dropbacks, team high. He averages 3.03 yards per route run. He has a commanding lead in terms of the air yards in this game, 47% share of the air yards, 42% share of the targets. Yeah, buddy, that's the Ladd McConkey I know. That's the Ladd McConkey who I said I would eat this pen if he is not, if the receiver core doesn't normalize, if he's not the guy here. He's the guy here. Let's be clear about the bet. It was whether it was going to normalize or whatever. But man, the rumors of his demise were greatly exaggerated, as Michael Florio puts it on the screen here. Incredible night for him. The last 4 weeks, 41 targets, 27 catches, 3 receiving touchdowns. All of those lead the team. Look, Quentin Johnson, 0 catches in this game, 0 targets in this game. It's been very slow for Quentin Johnson ever since he came off that hamstring injury. So maybe that's still bothering him. I will note there was one play, and this is the beauty of the Prime Vision broadcast on Thursday night, where Herbert scrambles, and Quentin Johnson was open right down the pipe. It could have walked in for a touchdown, but Herbert had to bail on the play and scrambled, picked up the first down. That's great, and clearly frustrated the defense. That's always fun to see when a quarterback like Herbert is scrambling, a guy that for some reason defenses think doesn't. I don't know. Herbert's clearly athletic, and he's always had this ability in him. It was fun for the broadcast to kind of highlight that, but they were super frustrated all night that they kept giving up those first downs to Justin Herbert. But anyways, Quentin Johnson was open in the end zone. He catches a touchdown there. We're maybe not having this conversation, although I definitely think I would love for some of you guys to send in some Quentin Johnson emails to talk about him on the People's Panic Meter, because it's been very slow, 11% and 0% target share in the 2 games since he came back from the injury. So maybe he's not fully healthy, but also my whole theory about the pen bet was that this would normalize, that there was not going to be this massive gap between Quentin Johnson and Ladd McConkey, because I'm sorry, Quentin Johnson, as I've said all year, has made an individual leap. He's playing much better in isolation than he has previously. He's not better than Ladd McConkey. Keenan Allen at this stage of his career, good player, not better than Ladd McConkey. Oronde Gadsden, he looks pretty awesome, but I still think Ladd McConkey is the most dangerous weapon on this team. So if you brought him from somebody who was panicking, in redraft, dynasty, whatever, shout out to you. You did a great thing. So I'm really happy to see Ladd doing that. And I just want to quickly note, I know I'm yapping about the Chargers way too long here, but Trey Harris, rookie wide receiver for this team, runs around on 29% of the dropbacks. He plays 50% of the snaps. Nathan Junkie had a really good tweet about this from Pro Football Focus earlier, where in the first half, just the formations kind of and the differences of when Harris was out there. Harris, I think, has shown himself to be a good blocker overall, but I also liked the receiving tape for him when he started for Quentin Johnson a few games ago. He's someone that, from a dynasty perspective, I'm pretty excited about. He's somebody that even, I don't think you can start him in redraft, but if somebody gets hurt here and he plops back into the starting lineup, I'm pretty interested in that. And they're not just using him as an X. He's playing all three receiver positions. He scores a touchdown in the red zone tonight. Very bullish on Trey Harris potentially being a starting receiver for this team next season. So yeah, really like what I've seen from him. So just for the deep dynasty bros, a name to remember. Don't think he's going to have any rest of season value in fantasy, anything consistent, but 29% of the routes, 50% of the snaps. He looks like a solid role player, at least for this team, which again is good and kind of my theory of why this team is so deep in the pass catching department. All right, Vikings. We've put it off long enough. We've got to talk about the Vikings here. What was that? What did we watch tonight? That was one of the most torturous quarterback games I have ever watched. Period. But before I talk about the quarterback play, I just have to note the Minnesota Vikings, for a team that is really committed to its ground game, right? And got Aaron Jones back. Now, Christian Darrisaw left in this game. They still don't have Brian O'Neill, their starting right tackle. They had a 0% rushing success rate tonight. 0. No runs of 10 plus yards. 22% runs of 5+ yards. Pitiful performance from a run game perspective. And yes, you did fall behind early, but there was never a moment where, oh yeah, heating up on the ground, Minnesota Vikings. And this Chargers defense is one you could run on. So really concerning performance from Minnesota. As Nathan Jonke notes here, Xavier Scott led the Vikings in rushing yards with 16, completely from those last 2 minutes of the game. Speaking of the last 2 minutes of the game, that's the only time we saw third-string quarterback Max Brosmer, which, why was Carson Wentz in that game? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be the tinfoil hat theory guy here, but you gotta admit that the Vikings quarterback situation is just weird on paper. I'm not usually that's a bad look guy or the optics or any of that stuff, but the optics of this situation are so weird. You've got JJ McCarthy, who, if this was Sunday, he would have played. Well, it's Thursday, and he's at his jersey on the sideline, got the damn C on his chest and everything. Justin Jefferson rolls off the sideline, and like McCarthy hops over him. Hayden Winks says, listening to Jay Glazer on postgame radio, he said he talked to KOC. If McCarthy was, quote, grizzly old vet, then he would have been playing already, but they want him to, quote, grow when he's playing instead of having him play at less than 100% while he's learning. I mean, okay, I guess I get that. And I'm sure he'll start next week and all this will be a moot point, but it just is bizarre because Carson Wentz, I mean, number one, he's Carson Wentz, but two, he was so clearly physically compromised in this game. I mean, he's out there with the giant freaking robot arm. Every time he gets hit, every time he moves, he's grimacing in pain. What are we doing here? What are we talking about? That was an inexcusable quarterback to have on the field. If Wentz is that physically he's already a limited quarterback. He already holds the ball forever. It's so funny listening to Kirk Herbstreit say he's got to speed up his clock. Dude, this guy has been in the league for so long, and that clock has been 2 seconds behind since the day he walked into the NFL field, and ain't nothing changed here in the year 2025. This is who he is. He's going to put himself in harm's way anyways behind this offensive line, still trying to duck under pass rushers like he was doing 10 damn years ago. And he's already going to put himself in trouble doing that, and he's physically compromised. He's got this robot arm. What are we doing here? The Vikings walked into that game several steps behind the 8 ball. So very confusing performance. I don't even know what to break down from this team other than that, because like I said, they were just it was over before the game started with Wentz in that physical state. Why would you not, if you're not going to play JJ McCarthy because of all that stuff, why would you not just throw Max Brosmer out there and see what happens? Because at some point you're so behind in this game anyways, Wentz is not throwing you back into it. It's like he's out there just to take the hits for another week. And then, all right, now McCarthy gets back in there. That feels weird. It feels weird. I understand that other like quarterbacks can be developed on different timelines. And I'm not saying it's over for JJ McCarthy or, let's really sound the alarm bells. But you certainly, if you're a Vikings fan, and maybe Vikings fans have talked themselves into this is going to be fine. And like I said, it might be fine. I don't know. But if I was a Vikings fan, I would feel weird about the way this is going right now. Not that JJ McCarthy can't work out. Not that he can't be developed. Like I said, all quarterbacks can be developed in different ways. Not everybody has to follow the same cookie cutter path, yada, yada, yada. Different timelines are fine. But it just feels weird. We can acknowledge the fact that it's a little bizarre. And I don't know what to do about it. But that was 5 games of Carson Wentz. I imagine that that's the 5th and final game that we'll see of Carson Wentz. So next week, we can talk about what J.J. McCarthy does for Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, who scored a touchdown in this game to save his fantasy day. That's really it. That's all we really care about from this offense is those 2 guys. I think T.J. Hawkinson's a guy you should have dropped in fantasy weeks ago. I can't believe Adam Thielen plays football for this team. What is he even doing out there? Great trade from the Carolina Panthers. So that's the Vikings. They're in a weird state. I think we can stop pretending that this team is a contender. It's not. Their plan coming into the season, I think, is not working out because of the injuries on the offensive line, et cetera, et cetera. They're not going to be this great running team, whatever. The defense can't stop the run. I mean, the only running back who hasn't been successful against the Vikings is Saquon Barkley. So that's a talking point for the most part this year. His team's not ready to compete. They need to just get J.J. McCarthy ramped up, and then 2026 we can try again. And I think that's ready. That's where we're at with the Minnesota Vikings. Maybe I'm overreacting to what was like I said, torturous performance tonight from their offense, but that is where I find myself here at almost midnight on Thursday night. All right, that's going to do it for this recap. Oh, one last thing. Just really funny. I don't know if I wanted to tweet this, but who wants to kick the hornet's nest on Twitter? So I'll just say it on the podcast and here on YouTube, where definitely no one's listening or watching, of course. Do you guys remember when Jim Harbaugh got hired by the Chargers and there was this weird but somewhat incessant internet rumor and fixation that Harbaugh was going to trade Justin Herbert, who had just signed a mega deal with this team, by the way, and is the reason that Jim Harbaugh chose to go to the Chargers, that he was going to trade Justin Herbert potentially to the Vikings. That was everybody's theory. Oh, he's going to trade him to the Vikings in order to just take his guy, JJ McCarthy. And I know that people are like, what are you talking about? That never happened. It happened. It definitely happened. There was a real time on the internet when that happened. And it was probably, and this is saying something because the internet is really dumb, it was probably the dumbest internet football rumor of all time. It was insane. Just completely wild. And tonight, there was a moment I'm sitting on my couch over there watching this game. That jogged back in my memory. God, there's so many things in life I could never possibly remember, but I do remember this happening. There was a moment that jogged in my memory, and I just had to laugh to myself. So hopefully that made you guys laugh as I've talked about this torturous game for way too long. All right, now that is officially going to do it for Thursday Night Football.